name is Professor Margaret Newell. I am a specialist in early American history here at Ohio State, and that includes colonial America, the American Revolution, Native American history, and I also teach more general courses that go right up through the American Civil War. So in spring of 2015, I taught one of our capstone seminars, History 4005, Research in Early American History. And in that class, our history majors are expected to write substantive research papers based on primary source research. And it was a great class. People did a wonderful job, a lot of really innovative and I think original research they produced in that particular class. And Evin was one of the students who I thought did an outstanding job.
My name is Evin Bachelor. I'm from Salina, Ohio, and I graduated from Ohio State in 2015, and I'm currently at the College of Law here at Ohio State pursuing a law degree. Kind of at the beginning of our class, we would go around the room and just kind of discuss proposals of things we were interested in and different topics that we could kind of see forming into a research question. So the topic I ended up choosing was kind of the development of Ohio's common school system. Basically, I started looking from the land ordinance of 1785 and then kind of tracing along the developments of how Ohio got a public education system through our Constitution in 1803 and then going on through the debates and the battles for what kind of system we should have, what it should look like, who's going to pay for it, and then finally I got to kind of toward the system that we have today.
Well, I liked Evin's project right from the start. I thought it was a great idea. I gave him some ideas about sources, where to find information, where he could get information on some of the legislation he was looking at.
A lot of the time it felt like just going into the research was like we were in some kind of a stormy sea, and then Professor Newell was here being our lighthouse on the shore, kind of guiding us where to go and what to look for. So it was really helpful. There were questions that I would have where I just couldn't find a source, because a lot of the times I might be able to find like a secondary source or whatnot, but it was difficult to find the primary sources sometimes I wanted to go for. So she'd make recommendations like look up the archives at the Ohio Historical Society. So in the class, I definitely learned some better research skills on finding a question and then being strategic about how you go about finding the answers to that question, because there's just so much information out there, and sometimes you're going to find stuff that is just totally irrelevant, but you have to kind of sift through and be strategic about what you're actually looking for and what kind of information is going to help you answer your question. But the class reminded me just how much fun history can be in itself, and why I initially got into history, just because there's just so many neat questions of what people have done in the past and how we got to where we are, and that's really what interested me to begin with.
So, I mean, from my point of view, Evin was a very well-directed, self-directed student. He had a good topic from the beginning. It was a doable topic. So a lot of our conversations were just about, well, here's what I know about the history. Here's what I know is going on in the colonial period. Here's some of the history that people in Ohio could have drawn upon. So I would just suggest, hey, what about legislation? What's going on in terms of, there were partisan politics then as now, and how did that affect this debate? Were there things in newspapers? In some ways, I think the most transferable sets of skills are really the more general ones about identifying problems. Once you've identified a problem, how do you go about finding the answers? So in other words, once I've identified a good question, how do I find the materials that I can use to answer that question? What kind of materials do I need to answer this particular kind of question? And then how do I write this up in a kind of coherent, persuasive, targeted way? How do I use evidence? How do I make a point and then I prove the point? That's essentially what we try to do. That can come in handy in lots of different fields.
Well, I can say that taking your class was probably the most preparation I got for going to law school than almost any of my other classes. Because that's a lot of what law school is. Is you're presented with a question, and there's so much material out there, and you're trying to find what what's going to answer my question? And that's what a lot of the time we're doing when I'm taking classes over the law school. Like for my legal analysis and writing class, it's finding the case material, the legislative history, all these different sources that help me answer this legal question. So I mean, I had a history in, or a background in history and political science, and you'd think that the political science might have more of an impact on preparing me for law school, but really I'd say it was my history writing courses that really prepared me the most. I remember freshman, sophomore year, I was one of those that felt intimidated, but until I actually started talking with my professors, and then it was like, why was I intimidated? Because they're all the nicest people who want to help me, want to engage with students. So yeah, you just have to break down those barriers. And unfortunately, I waited a little bit too long to break those down, but by the time I got to junior, senior year and took Professor Newell's American Revolution class and then the 4005, you know, it was a lot of fun going to office hours and whatnot and having those conversations.
Well, one of the things I require in this class and several of my other classes where students do research is that everybody prepare a poster and be ready to present on it. So the students have been presenting their ideas all the way through the term, as Evans said. So they had, and I often paired them to read each other's bibliographies, research proposals, rough drafts, etc. But, you know, these were the finished products, and they changed a lot over the course of the term. And then I also invited some guest judges, several graduate students in the history department, some people from the community, and some professors from the history department who came and walked around and asked the students questions. So everybody set up their posters, and then the students also had an opportunity to go by and talk to their classmates and hear a little bit more about the finished project and how things had changed along the way. And people did. I thought that was a fun event. My colleagues were very impressed. Several of them were really taken with these projects and felt that they had made an original contribution, and Evans was one of those.
To tell you how much fun that was, I still have my poster
You do?
hanging
Yay!
outside my door in my apartment.
That's hilarious.
It's kind of my reminder in the morning, you know, if I had a bad night or homework was really hard, that I can do something academically well. You know, I would definitely say that our history department is very personal. All the professors are so knowledgeable in what they do. Most of my history classes were military history, and like the professors, they were experts. They know directly what was going on in those wars through all of their research themselves. It's just such a strong faculty. We'd sometimes ask the craziest questions in class, but they still had an answer because that's how much they know about these topics that they're teaching. And that's what I really appreciated. Like we were actually learning from the faculty who have done the work on these topics. So, I mean, I guess if there was one more thing I would say, it's that History 4005 was just such a unique class in how intimate it was. Like every class, everyone would come, we'd either read a book or we're preparing our papers, and then we would have a discussion in the class about what we learned over the past week. And it was really a lot of fun to have such good interaction with Professor Newell, but also with each other. Like when we did our peer reviews of each other's papers, that was a unique opportunity to see what kinds of questions would my peers have if they were reading this paper. And for me, it also helped me to kind of come up, how can I help my peers do better on their research? So it really was a fun class.
Thank you.